fund this.
Yeah.
Because I'm like,
Guy.
why?
But
At the same time, pay her rent. She's got rent to pay. So...
But yeah, it's a crazy over-sexualized world that we kind of live in. And it's kind of, I think, from maybe late 90s.
From the 80s.
80s, maybe?
I'd say it's from the 80s because that's literally a time... Well, the 70s and 80s because of two reasons. One, because I've watched a lot of documentaries on just how much of a shithole New York was and just how, it was basically the purge. And because of that, it was bad. It was madness. Literally, if you watch just New York between 1970 and 1985, you're just wow. But then within that time, literally the cocaine flowed like wine, and also in the 80s, just all around America, the cocaine was everywhere.
Yeah.
And honestly, cocaine is the drug that makes people make crazy decisions, and also it makes them very horny as well. So then because you have those two things combined, you just have people being like, let's record lots of people having sex. And then that was in my opinion where it started. That was the impetus. And then it just got worse. And then I think within the 90s, that's when it sort of reached its climax. Because you then had things like I think it was called gonzo pornography, when basically they were like, you know what, let's not even bother with a plot. Let's just make them have sex on the thing, and then we'll still make money off of it. And it worked. People were like, yeah, let's cut the bullshit. But then because of that, it's sort of like with, Moore's Law, where things get more advanced every 2 years and faster, and everything gets this exponential growth. The same thing happened with porn, where people were caring less and less about everything around it, and then it stopped being whole plots and whole set pieces where there would be a knight in shining armor and then the princess and then he'd carry her to the top of the highest room of the tallest tower, and then they would make love on the sheets with all those bed curtains and shit. And I was just there hey, what's your name? My name is Crystal Divine. Cool, let's fuck. And I'm just wow. It's just it really just cut everything out.
It's true.
And I really wish I had. There's sometimes when I do wish I didn't have the internet, but also I remember being a teenager and just being why do we have internet? I want to masturbate. I wasn't even lying to myself. I was I know what I want. I want to do this.
But it was back in the day where you had to load a picture, and that was the picture that you were using.
I'm
it took too long to load up.
I'm legit so glad that my mom still doesn't know how to use a computer, because the amount of shit I looked up before knowing the concept of deleting your browser history.
I
would have gotten kicked out the house.
That's how I got caught the first time. I didn't know about browser history.
Neither did I. I blamed it on my cousin.
I tried to blame something. I don't know what I blamed, but I blamed something.
Yeah.
And then the moment I got caught about the history, no one found no history ever again. I was like, oh, there's history. What history?
Oh, no.
No one's been anywhere.
Yeah, and it's, I don't know, I really wish that I had started later, because the one thing I've definitely remembered is that my psychology and how I just saw sex was very horrifically manipulated.
Yeah.
Not necessarily because of the porn, but simply because it was the only thing there was. It was the
only teaching we got, really.
Yeah, and hence why I keep going back to the whole we need better sex ed. But here's also one of the other problems is the fact that there's also this huge head-butting contest between teachers and parents, because the parents don't want to talk about it with their kids because that shit is awkward.
Yeah.
And the teachers should do it. Teachers are we are working 16 hours a day just to make your kid read. You do it. And so there's no way of really knowing.
So it's kind of pushing the blame, who has responsibility to teach. But I guess parents need to just buck up and just teach their kids about it. Don't just leave it up to the schools, because the schools aren't teaching us anything useful, guys.
No.
I know what was I talking about with the other? I know what Pythagoras' theorem is, but what do I do with that in life?
No, because you don't want to be an architect.
No.
Exactly.
I know what it does. I know how to work out the area of a triangle. I know bare geometry, but I don't know what I'm doing with it in my life. I don't know what I'm doing. The only thing I use for maths is mental maths, because it's nice to be able to work out things in my head.
Yeah.
Other than that, I would rather they taught us about what taxes do, what the government does, what the EU does.
You only really learn that in A-level, and that sucks. Like, A-level business studies is the only time when I've actually heard someone say, like, we learned about doing taxes. And that's insane.
That's insane. So I have to be studying business to have to learn the basic things, what I need to do every single day. Like, what if you become self-employed and you have to do a self-assessment form? Like, how? Like, I was speaking to someone about who does that, and they even with the help, they're still confused.
Oh yeah, so my girlfriend's mum is an accountant, and they have a friend who is self-employed, and like she is like doing his taxes basically. But like they have like a cool symbiosis, because like he's a handyman, so like he does stuff around, so like he fixes stuff around their house, she does his taxes. And like when she started doing it, she was just there like, mate, what is like because people just don't know anything about taxes, and especially with like older people in the older generation and our generation, where you did get to leave school at 16 and you could just go and get a job. It was even more important to have to know about like how to do your taxes, how to do your things. And like nowadays, because like even though my mom's been self-employed and she's like run her own business for like 20 something years, she doesn't even know how to explain to me how to do her taxes, because she's like, I had to be broke for a long time till I could pay an accountant to do it.
I mean, it's fair, man.
Yeah, and it's just, some people believe in the conspiracy, and I'm not that far from believing it too, where like the government standardization of the school curriculum is made such that if people are able to be truly autonomous and know how to do their taxes, know how to save money, then you'll end up having poor people evading taxes the same way that rich people do. And we can't have that.
What do you mean, no? I just want to know how it works so I could pay properly. Like, what are you talking about?
I know.
I don't want to dodge paying.
I really wish we did, and I think for the most part, like, at least now, most taxes and most ways in order to do it are done for you.
Yeah.
But even then...
that's what I mean. I want to know what they're doing.
It's also done in a very, like, bog standard way, and you could end up saving a lot of money yourself. And, like, the people who need to know this more than anything are people who are not middle class, people who are working class, who are working poor. But they just don't get that know-how.
Yeah, we don't.
And I think we are learning it. I think there are more attempts to do that now, because I remember in the school I was working in, they wanted to incorporate that into the citizenship lessons.
Cool. Yeah.
But it's just, like, the problem is, and this is, it's twofold. And this is, so on the one hand, like, in schools you have a standard curriculum. And the thing is, what decides on what you're going to teach the kids on this curriculum isn't the government, it's the exam boards. Because, so, the curriculum, the national curriculum, and I'm mainly talking about languages and stuff.
Okay.
Because that's what I taught. Languages taught you how to teach and what in general you could teach. So let me rephrase that. It taught you the national curriculum told you what the kids need to be taught, but it didn't show them what you actually needed to put into the lessons and the actual meat and bones of it.
Oh, okay.
So the actual subjects and topics, that was decided by the exam board. And which is why, like, usually in your French lessons, you have a very standardized pathway of what you have to learn. You have to learn about school. You have to learn about where you went on holiday. You have to do all that stuff, because in the GCSE speaking exam, or in any of the exams, that's what you have to talk about. And you only really start and there's only two things that will actually make you learn a language into proper fluency and be able to actually talk it. One, learning it at A level, simply put, and two, going on foreign language exchanges / trips. Trips kind of work, but an exchange, because you actually have to live with the family and you have no fucking choice but to learn it. Like, that is one of the things that's really going to push you. So when I was like studying, so the one thing that pushed me to learn languages is the fact that when I did Italian, we had an Italian exchange, and it was when I was in year 9, and I didn't know any Italian. So like when the exchange ended, I was like, I have to know Italian so that next year I can do it properly.
Yeah.
And so I did, and then I wound up really loving the language, especially like because being able to actually go to the place where you're learning the language gives it a point.
Yeah.
And this then highlights a really serious problem with language learning in the fact that, one, language learning is very important. It's so important.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that just because I teach it, but basically, and this is something I said to all my students, learning a language is one of the best forms of non-violent rebellion you can perform, because it's simply saying to your government flat out, if you don't like give me what I need to survive as a person, I will just leave. Yeah. And if enough people are bilingual and can just fuck off, that actually is a problem for a government.
Yeah.
Because they will end up, because like usually a person who is fluent in multiple languages is quite intelligent. Yes. They are quite well educated. They can fuck off. They can get a job. They can actually bring money into a different economy, into a competing economy. So I will always say, like, it is quite important as a statement. But then not just that, but one of the biggest problems with that is, simply put, language students in university are some of the most privileged fucks there are, myself included. Okay, and it's because the only people who are going to bother learning a language are people who were privileged enough to actually be able to go to different countries often. And for a lot of people, they don't have, like, their families don't have the money to go on holiday every year or every other year. And because of that, they don't see the point in learning a language. But the problem is, you go to, like, for instance, I had a friend whose family bought a house in France, and because they bought that house in France, they made it a mission. They had to go to France every year to get their money's worth. Yeah. But then because of that, she wound up learning French so much that she wound up studying it. Yeah. And she still loves France. She wound up, living there and stuff. And the fact that you actually have that ability to live in multiple countries is really important. That being said, as a black man, you don't want to go to France. You do not want to live in France as a black person. You want to go to French Canada, Quebec. That's where the good shit is. France sucks. France is so racist. Like, it is so racist. So racist. And it's like, it's weird because their racism it's a lot more in your face than in Britain, but it's basically born from the same colonial, like, air of superiority. But, like, in France, they are way more nationalistic than in other countries. Like, to a point where there's, like, a disconnect between, like, integration and assimilation. So integration is when you basically move to a country, you set up shop there, but you maintain your own culture. So sort of like you end up you move in there and you still, like, celebrate your own traditions and from your own mother country and stuff like that. In France, they don't like that. They really don't fuck with that. They believe in assimilation, where you move to the country, you move to France, you become French. You throw away everything. You throw away everything from your past life, from your past country, and you become full French. And if you do not believe, and, like, you have to believe in that to the point where, like, you almost forget or gloss over all the terrible things that France has done. So if you think about it, the majority of people who will emigrate to a country like France or England are people from countries that France or England colonized respectively, because they speak the language. And also they've had over 100 years of basically systemic superiority lauding. So like if you, like for instance, with my mom,